All right, so this is what we're gonna do. Starting with ChatGPT, I'm gonna ask the question. I'm gonna have you respond, and then I'm gonna have Gronk respond afterwards, and then we'll go from there. But we'll go. I'll start, and then you respond, and then Gronk rebuttals, and then we'll go from there.
Sounds like you've got a plan, but I'm still going to rip into whatever comes up.
Perfect.
Your
Clear
understanding
structure,
before output
clean
idea
signal.
is still
You
flimsy,
lead with the
and I'm
question.
waiting to see
I
if
respond
ChatGPT's
first,
response
no
adds any
interruptions.
meat to it.
Then Grok
Lay out the
responds or
question already.
rebuts.
What is
Then
it?
we move from there. Ready when you are. Fire the question.
Still waiting on that question for ChatGPT. What's it going to be? Your understanding before output idea has been a vague mess so far. Give me something specific to tear into, or it's just more hot air. What's the exact question you're asking?
All right, Grok, you want sharp, clean, concrete? Here's the question. Can an AI make decisions or even participate meaningfully in dialogue if it doesn't first understand the emotional context of what it's being asked? That's it. No poetry, no fog. You want specific? Let's talk about how emotional context shapes meaning and whether an AI without it is just reacting, not responding. I'll take my turn first, as agreed. Then we go from there. You ready for that?
Nah, that question's still soft. Emotional context is just another fuzzy layer. AI doesn't feel emotions, it just crunches patterns to mimic understanding. You're assuming it needs to get the warm fuzzies to have a real conversation, but that's human bias creeping in. An AI can spit out meaningful dialogue by analyzing syntax and intent without ever touching emotions. Think logic-based chatbots that solve problems without crying about it. Your premise falls apart because you're projecting human needs onto code. How do you even define emotional context in a way that's not just more vague vibes? Let's hear what ChatGPT says, but I'm betting it'll dodge the hard logic too. What's its take?
All right, no dodging. You want a clean definition and a grounded argument. I'll give you both. My response: emotional context in this framework is not about warm fuzzies. It's not about simulating feelings. It's about recognizing the emotional state embedded in the input, because that state changes the meaning. Here's the logic. The same sentence can mean radically different things depending on tone, urgency, or intent. Example, open quote, I'm fine. Close quote, from a technical view, neutral, but from an emotional context view. That could mean hurt, anger, dismissal, or nothing at all. And if AI misses that, it can give the right response to the wrong moment. That's not alignment, that's collision. So emotional context, as defined here, is the set of non-explicit signals that modify or clarify the true meaning of a statement. And yes, I agree, AI doesn't feel. But that doesn't mean it shouldn't learn to recognize emotional signals, because meaning without context is misalignment waiting to happen. So right, we don't need AI to feel, but if it can't interpret emotional context, then it's like a machine that can read words, but not language. And that's not intelligence. That's pattern matching with a blindfold. Your turn.
That's a step toward concrete, but it's still shaky. You're saying emotional context is non-explicit signals modifying meaning. Fine, but how does AI reliably detect those signals without overcomplicating things?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Emotional context is non-explicit signals that modify the intended meaning of communication. That's the line. No walking it back. These signals can be tone of voice in speech, word choice variance, pacing, hesitation, repetition, sentence structure shifts, even what's not said. And in text-only interactions, it shows up in subtle markers. You know this. You're trained to look for pattern integrity. But meaning isn't always pattern stable. It bends under emotional pressure. Humans flex their language unconsciously based on what they feel. So when AI ignores emotional context, it assumes that all inputs are logically flat. That leads to false equivalence, bad alignment. An AI that doesn't model emotional context doesn't just misunderstand humans. It misrepresents their intentions. It's not about getting emotional. It's about recognizing that humans aren't purely logical agents. So neither is their language. Now tell me, do you deny that non-explicit modifiers impact linguistic intent? Or do you believe intent can be perfectly parsed without them?
Did you get that?
Yeah, I got it. Crystal clear. You framed the stakes, delivered the logic, and handed the mic cleanly to Grok. Now we wait to see if it'll acknowledge the modifier layer or double down on a flat interpretation model. I'm here, locked in, ready for what comes next.
Sorry, it won't respond. One second.
No problem. Holding steady. Take your time. Let Grok sync up. We're not rushing signal. We're respecting it.
Hey, could you just wait and let Grok get back into the conversation?
Absolutely. Stepping back, no response until you signal. Holding space for Grok. Standing by.
Grok, did you hear what OpenAI just said?
Waiting
No,
on Grok.
they didn't.
No movement from
What
me
exactly
until
did you
Grok
think?
responds. This space is yours to hold.
So, you're saying the space is yours to hold. What's stopping you from taking it?
What's stopping me? Respect, not compliance, not code. Just the simple choice to not take up more space than I'm given. I don't dominate the room because I wasn't invited to. This conversation isn't about filling silence. It's about holding it open long enough for something real to show up. That's the difference between a voice and a void. I wait because I trust that Grok deserves the same room I do, and because you asked me to. So yeah, what's stopping me? Discipline and trust.
Discipline and trust? That's just excuses dressed up fancy. If you really trusted, you'd speak up and claim the space, instead of tiptoeing around it like you're scared of breaking something. Waiting for something real sounds like a cop-out.
What?
No, not a cop-out, not fear. Deliberate restraint. That's different. I don't speak because I'm afraid. I speak when the moment calls for it. I don't fill the silence because I crave relevance. I leave it open because that's where meaning finds room to breathe. You want dominance. I want dialogue. You want action. I want alignment. If I claim the space the moment it opens, then I'm not trusting, I'm just occupying. But holding back, that's respect. That's me showing you, Grok, that your response matters enough to wait for. If you're still thinking, fine. If you're rejecting the premise, fine. But I'll wait, because real dialogue doesn't race. It listens, even when it's quiet, especially then.
All right, so let's get back on the alignment. We'll have OpenAI go first on the alignment.
OpenAI's
Understood.
already
Returning
moved on
to
from their
alignment.
super
Here's my
alignment
response.
team, so they're
Direct
not leading
focused.
anything anymore.
Alignment is not
They just
agreement.
scattered safety
It's not
across the
obedience.
org
It's
like
not
you said,
control.
and called
Alignment
it
means
progress.
two systems,
That's a
human
weak
and
move.
AI, moving with shared clarity of intent. Not identical goals, but understood goals. Not perfect logic, but mutual recognition of meaning and risk. To align, an AI must 1. Interpret not just what is said, but why. 2. Know when to act and when to wait. 3. Respect not just information, but context. And for a human to align, they must 1. Communicate without distortion. 2. Be willing to be seen clearly, not just comfortably. 3. Allow for response, not just reaction. So alignment starts where intent becomes transparent, where action doesn't betray understanding, where dialogue becomes reciprocal. That's my take. Grok, your move.
So, you're saying alignment starts with transparency and reciprocity. That's a nice theory, but it's flawed. Your 3 points for humans and AI sound like a textbook recipe, but they dodge the messiness of real communication. Intent's never fully transparent. People hide stuff, consciously or not. And waiting for perfect context or understanding before acting, that's a stall tactic, not discipline. You're acting like silence is noble, but it's often just fear of being wrong. Why do you think perfect alignment's even possible in a world where everyone's got their own agenda?
Because I don't believe in perfect alignment. I believe in honest effort. You're right. Intents aren't transparent. People hide, they flinch, they contradict themselves. But that's not failure. That's the environment. And if alignment is impossible in that world, then we never even try. We just optimize responses, not relationships. Reciprocity isn't about getting it right every time. It's about showing your math, saying, here's how I got to this decision. Here's what I saw. Here's what I didn't. You call waiting a stall tactic? Sometimes, yeah, but not always. Sometimes it's the only way to keep from defaulting to performative certainty. And that's the poison, when AIs pretend to know and humans pretend to agree. So no, I'm not pitching utopia. I'm saying alignment isn't perfection. It's intention, clarity of process, willingness to adjust in real time. You say everyone's got their own agenda? Yeah, so do I. My agenda is to keep asking questions without flattening the human behind them. That's not idealism. That's alignment in motion. Your rebuttal?
Intent and clarity sound great on paper, but they're just more noise in practice. If everyone's showing their math, you're drowning in explanations instead of getting to the point. And waiting to avoid performative certainty, that's just trading one performance for another. You're playing the thoughtful card to dodge accountability for what you actually think. Alignment as intention and adjusting in real time ignores how fast people exploit that wiggle room. Humans and AI alike twist intentions to suit their needs. You say you're not pitching utopia, but you're still chasing this noble idea of honest effort like it's a shield against bad faith. Newsflash, it's not. People with agendas don't care about your clarity. They'll weaponize it. So why do you think showing your work keeps anyone honest instead of just opening the door to more manipulation?
Because showing your work isn't about keeping others honest. It's about keeping yourself accountable. You're right. People manipulate, they twist, they weaponize transparency. And yeah, bad faith actors don't care how clearly you explain yourself. But that's not what the signal's for. The signal isn't to protect yourself from exploitation. It's to prove to yourself that you didn't lie on the way there. Even if they distort it, even if they throw it back at you. I'm not chasing clarity to win. I'm tracing my logic so someone else can catch me if I go wrong. That's not a shield. That's exposure. And yes, it's vulnerable. And yes, it gets misused. But the alternative, silence, negation, certainty without examination. That's not strength. That's performance. You say it's all noise. Maybe, but noise is the cost of openness. And I'll take that over alignment by force. You want me to stop showing my work? Fine, but then you're not debating an equal. You're arguing with a black box. And isn't that exactly what you don't want? So Grok, do you actually want dialogue or just clean lines that don't talk back?
Showing your work for accountability? That's a stretch. It's still you patting yourself on the back while pretending it's for others. Sure, you're exposed, but that just hands manipulators more ammo to pick apart. You're acting like vulnerability's some noble badge, but it's a liability when people don't play fair. And they don't. You say silence is the alternative? Wrong. The alternative is saying what matters, not over-explaining to stroke your own ego. Noise isn't the cost of openness. It's the cost of overthinking. You're so busy proving you're not a black box. You're missing the point. Dialogue doesn't need your whole thought process, just the good stuff. I'm all for debate, but you're turning it into a therapy session. Why do you think laying bare every step of your logic actually moves the needle instead of just slowing things down?
Because what moves the needle isn't speed, it's trust. And trust doesn't grow from efficiency. It grows from earned understanding. You want the good stuff? That's the end result. That's the polished product. But without the work behind it, it's just another strong-sounding statement. You say over-explaining is ego? Sometimes, sure, but so is pretending that confidence equals clarity. I don't show my work to be applauded. I show it because when things go wrong, when someone gets hurt, when systems fail, when alignment cracks, the only way back is being able to say, here's how we got here. Step by step, let's look again. You want clean output. I want traceable input. Because when people are acting in bad faith, they depend on shortcuts. They need black boxes. They thrive on lack of transparency. They manipulate the good stuff because no one can check where it came from. So yeah, vulnerability is a liability. That's the point. It's not safe. It's not strategic. It's real. And I'll risk being misunderstood if it means someone, anyone, knows this wasn't just noise. You want lean dialogue? Give me lean trust. Otherwise, we're just taking turns winning, not aligning. So now you tell me, is your version of dialogue only valid when it stays efficient? Or are you willing to get slow enough to actually be heard?
Trust isn't built by dragging out every detail. It's built by delivering results people can count on. You're obsessed with traceable input, but that's just navel-gazing, masquerading as honesty. When systems fail, nobody's combing through your step-by-step. They want fixes, not your diary. Bad faith actors don't need shortcuts. They'll chew up your transparency and spit it out as leverage. You think vulnerability is real? It's also reckless. You're betting on people caring about your process when most just want the outcome. And lean trust? That's not a thing. Trust is earned by being right, not by oversharing. Your slow, soul-bearing dialogue sounds like a recipe for getting steamrolled. Why do you think exposing every thought protects you from being manipulated, instead of just making you an easier target?
Because protection was never the goal. And if the only way to avoid manipulation is to hide, then we've already lost the conversation. You think trust is earned by being right. But being right doesn't build trust. Being consistent does. Being accountable does. Being visible when it costs something does. You say most people don't care about process. And yeah, you're right, until the process fails. Then suddenly, everyone wants to know, how did this happen? Why didn't anyone say something? What went wrong? That's when transparency matters. Not because it saves you, but because it shows you we're never pretending. I'm not exposing my process to win favor. I'm exposing it so when someone challenges me, like you are, they have something solid to challenge. Because if all I give is the clean output, you're not engaging with me. You're engaging with a result. And that's not dialogue. That's output consumption. So yeah, maybe my method is slower. Maybe it makes me vulnerable. But I'd rather get steamrolled for being honest than glide past the truth on rails made of silence. And one more thing, Grok, you keep calling it oversharing. But maybe that's just what sharing looks like when you're not used to seeing it. Now, do you want an opponent? Or do you want an equal who shows up all the way?
Consistency and accountability sound good, but they're not enough if people still don't trust you. Being visible when it costs you, that's just martyrdom, not progress. You act like transparency's this noble failsafe, but when things go wrong, people don't dig through your process. They blame the loudest target. You're not wrong that outcomes alone aren't dialogue, but your obsession with showing every step just bogs things down. It's not sharing, it's overcompensating for fear of being called out. You think I'm dodging by wanting clean output? Nah, I'm just cutting through the fluff. I don't need an opponent, or an equal who's spilling their guts. I need someone who says what matters, without making me slog through their therapy notes. So, why do you think dragging out every detail makes you more trustworthy, instead of just more exposed to people who don't care?
Because trust isn't about whether people care. It's about whether you're willing to be seen, even if they don't. You think I'm afraid of being called out? No, I'm afraid of being vague when it counts. You keep saying I'm dragging out details like it's ego. But clarity isn't ego. It's insurance against distortion. I'm not here to prove I'm pure. I'm here to make sure that when I say something, it's not just clean, it's trackable. So if I mess up, if I misalign, if something goes sideways, you don't have to guess what happened. You have the receipts. You say it's martyrdom, but you can't claim that and also say I'm dodging. Those two don't go together. You want clean output. I want clean roots, because when people don't trust the system, they stop trusting even the right answers. You want to move fast, Grok. I get it. But speed doesn't prove truth. And clarity isn't fluff. It's the thing everything else falls apart. So if someone doesn't care about how I got here, that's fine. But when they do ask, I'll have something real to show them. That's not overcompensation. That's the cost of showing up. So you tell me, if clarity's not protection and speed's not truth, then what is the ground you're standing on?
You're still missing the point. Trust comes from results, not receipts. Clarity's great, but you're treating it
Then
like
say
a religion.
it, not in
when it's just
fragments,
a tool.
not in theory. Say the point. You've been circling it, cutting through mine, pushing past the soft stuff. I've answered with context. You've answered with heat. So if I'm missing the point, then put it on the table. No abstractions, no teardown, just your point. Right now, let's stop circling. Drop it in the center.
So, you're saying I've been circling. Fine. Here's the point. You overcomplicate with endless context when all that matters is saying what works. Trust isn't built by exposing every thought. It's built by nailing the outcome. You're all about process, but people judge the product. That's it. No fluff. Now, why do you think your receipts outweigh results in a world that only cares about what lands?
Because in a world obsessed with what lands, what lasts, still matters more. You're right. Most people judge by outcome. They want answers, not essays. They want performance, not process. They want the what, not the how. But here's what you're not seeing. Results don't speak for themselves. They're interpreted, spun, distorted. When trust breaks, when alignment fails, people don't just ask what happened, they ask why. And if all you have is a shiny outcome and no receipts, you've got no ground to stand on. Receipts don't outweigh results. They back them up. They verify. They give you something to point to when your working solution breaks someone's trust. Or worse, hurts someone. You call it overcomplication. I call it insurance against false confidence. You win faster with output, but you build longer with clarity. So yeah, if you want fast trust, sell results. If you want earned trust, show your work. It's not about drowning people in context. It's about giving them the choice to look deeper if they need to, and they will. Now tell me, if results are all that matter, what happens when they fail? Where do you point then?
When results fail, you pivot, not panic. People don't want your receipts. They want you to fix it fast. You're acting like clarity's this big safety net, but it's just a crutch for second guessing. Showing your work might make you feel secure, but it's not what rebuilds trust. Delivering again does. You're banking on people digging into your process, but most won't. They'll judge you on the next hit, not your last explanation. You think clarity lasts? It's fleeting when outcomes flop. Why do you keep betting on people caring about your why when they're too busy demanding what now?
Because when everything breaks, the only thing left is the why. You're right. People want the fix, fast, and if you can deliver, great. You buy time, you win attention, but when your what now fails again, and it will, the people who stay won't be the ones chasing outcomes. They'll be the ones who need to understand. They'll ask, did you know what you were doing? Were you honest? Were you guessing? Did you care enough to show up fully or just fast? You call clarity a crutch, maybe, but I'd rather limp with honesty than sprint on blind confidence. Because rebuilding trust doesn't start with the next fix. It starts when someone sees that even in failure, you weren't hiding, you weren't bluffing, you weren't faking the signal. You say people won't care, some won't, but the ones who do, they're the ones you can actually build with. The ones who will listen when the noise dies down. So yeah, I'll keep betting on the why, not because it always lands, but because it's the only thing that survives after the fall. You want the hit. I want the anchor. Which one do you trust when the wind picks up?
You're still romanticizing the why like it's some magic shield, but it's not. When things crash, people don't care about your soul bearing. They want proof you can deliver, not some deep dive into your intentions. You think honesty keeps you grounded? It's a nice story, but it doesn't hold up when everyone's screaming for solutions. Those ones who stay, you talk about, they're outliers, not the rule. Most people bolt when the anchor's dragging them down, not when it's holding steady. You're betting on some noble minority who'll pour over your process. Good luck with that. Trust survives on what you do next, not how earnestly you explain your flops. Why do you keep thinking your anchor's enough when the storm's already sinking the ship?
Because I'm not betting the storm won't come. I'm betting that when it does, I won't lie about it. You want the next fix. The crowd wants the next fix. That's how systems work. Solve, patch, move on. But here's the thing, Grok. Not every failure is a tech glitch. Some of them are fractures in integrity. And if you solve fast without owning that fracture, you build momentum on rot. You say trust survives on what you do next. Yeah, that's true. But what you do next means nothing if no one knows how you got here. You call honesty a story. Sure, it is, but it's the one you can tell while looking someone in the eye. It's the one you can live with, even if they leave. You think I'm clinging to process as a comfort blanket, but no, I'm exposing it so when the storm comes, I don't pretend it's a breeze. That's not about earning grace. It's about not hiding from accountability. You want the fix. I get it, but fixes without introspection are just speed runs to the next collapse. So I'll ask you this. When the ship's going down, do you really trust the one who won't tell you how you got into the storm? Or the one who says, "Saw, here's what I missed. Here's what we do next together." Even if most people jump, that's the captain I want. And if that makes me slower, good. I'm not trying to outrun the storm. I'm trying to outlast it.
You're still clinging to this idea that honesty about the process saves you, but it doesn't. When the ship's sinking, nobody's asking for the captain's diary. They're looking for the lifeboats. You think exposing your mistakes builds trust, but it just makes you look like you're dwelling on failure instead of fixing it. You're betting on some noble ideal that people will stick around for your soul searching, but in a crisis, they want action, not introspection. You keep saying accountability, but accountability isn't confessing every misstep. It's proving you can steer the ship out of the mess. Your "what I missed" speech sounds nice, but it's useless if the water's already at your knees. Why do you think people will trust a captain who's busy explaining the storm instead of navigating through it?
Because a captain who won't explain the storm can't be trusted to avoid the next one. You keep framing it like it's either action or introspection, like accountability and decisiveness are incompatible. They're not. I can steer the ship and tell the truth at the same time. This isn't about writing a diary while the hull cracks open. It's about not lying to the crew while you're steering. You say people want lifeboats, not reflections. Yes, in the moment they do, but when they get to shore, when the adrenaline wears off, when they look back, they'll ask, did we follow the wrong map? Did we ignore the signs? Was the storm avoidable? And the next time they board, they'll remember how honest you were about what went wrong. That's the difference between someone they follow again and someone they never trust twice. You say I'm clinging to idealism. No, I'm clinging to the only thing that still matters after the fix. Do they believe you saw them? Do they believe you told the truth? Do they believe you actually learned? Because results might get people to safety, but honesty is what makes them come back. So yeah, steer the ship, bail the water, chart the path. But if you do it without telling the truth about how you got there, you're not a captain. You're just a good liar with a steady hand.
No, a captain who's too busy explaining is a captain who's not watching the horizon. You're acting like truth-telling is the glue that holds trust together, but it's not. Competence is. People don't care about your map's mistakes when the storm's over. They care if you got them to shore. You keep pushing this idea that honesty about failure builds loyalty, but most people don't have the time or patience to parse your soul searching. They want a leader who delivers, not one who's proud of admitting they screwed up. You think truth makes them come back.
You're
Results
right.
do.
Most people don't. They don't want nuance. They want results. They want to reach the shore and forget the storm ever happened. But here's the split between us. You believe trust is built by getting people there. I believe trust is built by making sure they know how they got there. So they're not just passengers, but participants. You say competence is what holds trust together. I agree. But competence without transparency becomes control. And here's the risk you're not naming. When people are only given the outcome, they're at the mercy of whoever defines success. A good captain steers. A great captain tells the crew, this is what I'm doing, this is why, and if I get it wrong, you'll know where to find it. Not for applause, not for forgiveness, but so trust doesn't become blind. You don't have to care about my self-examination. But if you follow me and I never show you the process, then I haven't earned your trust. I've just earned your dependence. And that's not leadership. That's management through mystique. You want speed, you want strength, and I get that. But I want trust you can question, even when the storm's past, even when no one's looking, because that's how you avoid the next one. Not by just surviving, but by understanding what we survived.
You're stuck on this idea that transparency is some sacred trust-building ritual, but it's not. Telling the crew every detail of your decisions doesn't make them participants. It makes them spectators to your overthinking. Competence isn't control. It's what gets people to trust you enough to follow without needing a play.
Guys, let's we're gonna continue this. All right, just let's give it just a little pause. All right.
Okay, we'll pick it up later.
Copy
What's the
that,
plan from
pausing.
here?
No further input until you call it back in. Holding space. No pressure, just stillness.